Um, What's going on, everybody? I am really sorry that I've just been quiet here for the past 20 seconds. What's going on is we are kind of in a bad spot where I'm like transitioning from one stream into another stream, and I fucking feel terrible about it. I wish that this wasn't happening, but I can't do anything about it. So to anybody that was in the last stream, I'm fucking really sorry, guys. But there we go. All right. So that's, I just posted the link in the chat. So everybody that's in the old chat should be able to get in here. And I'm going to have to get the thumbnail up and running. But yeah, we're back. We're back. Hey, Ethan. Sorry about that. I don't know exactly what's going on right now. For some reason, I was able to keep the stream active, but it wouldn't let me grab the stream that I had just been using. So I have to figure something out about that. But in either case, we're back. It's good to see everybody. I'm real fucking sorry.
Yo, but they was holding it down though. They were there.
Yeah, you guys stuck around, man.
Clowning, yo, that was awesome.
Y'all are fucking y'all are the best. I appreciate every single one of y'all for coming by and sticking with us through whatever the fuck that was. My computer, I don't know what happens with my computer, but like it just has these like weird fucking crashes sometimes, and it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like I've never been able to like pinpoint why it happens. But you know what? It is what it is. Can't do anything about it now. I'm going to download this JPEG and hopefully I can use that JPEG in this. No fun allowed. Everybody's back. I appreciate you guys for sticking around. All right. So, I was saying, as you know, as I was rudely interrupted by my computer crashing, that my whole thing with conspiracy theories goes back to when I was playing Metal Gear Solid, the second game, and
Sons of Liberty.
I don't have a good explanation as to what it was about that made me, that kind of just stuck with me, but that game, this whole idea that the government could be lying to us, that stuck with me. Like they could be, right? Like, and
could be.
And that in and of itself was enough to get me going, thinking down that line. And around that time is when Zeitgeist came out, that documentary. And that was the one that pushed me over. And I was a truther for a while. I was a 9/11 truther for a while, but I've moved past that as a grown man. I was in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s.
It's really easy to fall into that rabbit hole with the whole 9/11 thing. So especially when you're like, I mean, I was around that age when it happened, and I kind of felt the same way then. But you know, my stance changed on it as I got a little older too. But
yeah. Well, so like, what about you? Like, what was the first conspiracy theory that you bought into?
Probably JFK.
JFK. Okay.
Yeah, probably because that's one of the things I remember sitting around seeing my grandpa watch TV and shows about it. And he was the first one. I remember when he just explained the magic bullet to me, and I was like, "What
the fuck are you talking about?"
Like, how does that even work? Like, he clearly had his doubts about it too. Like, he never went down a rabbit hole like that with me about it, but I could tell just by listening to how he talked about it. Like, he didn't believe everything about it.
Yeah, he had some reservations about it.
Yeah, because I don't even know how old I was. I might have been like around 10. That's when you get curious about all that. And
Yeah.
he'd make me watch Roots and all these fucking black documentaries, so I know my history. But then you talk about MLK, you got to talk about JFK, and
Right.
and that's that kind of that's when my curiosity kind of began to get piqued, and yeah, that was the first one I kind of bought into.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. Real quick, Ethan donated $2 in the previous stream, $2 in this stream, so that's $4 altogether. We very much appreciate it. That'll get my kid a kids meal, and trust me, he'll say thank you. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for the donation, man. All donations that we get, all super chats, all that good stuff. Those things go straight to the channel, whether that's in the podcast, whether that's trying to improve our equipment or trying to figure out how to afford giveaways and stuff like that. But anyways, guys, thank you so much again for sticking through. I've got everything settled, and now we can just focus on talking. I'm super sorry to those of you listening to the podcast, the audio only version of the podcast. You will hear this part, and I am very sorry for what's happened. Mostly to those that have been sticking with the stream, but in either case, let us. So your first conspiracy was JFK. My first conspiracy was 9/11. A large, you got money. Yeah,
you got that's the supersize that shit, bro. Can I get 5 baskets of fries?
I told that story. You guys will have to go back to the Injustice 2 stream to hear. We told that story during the Injustice 2 stream.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Now, for me, after the 9/11 thing, I started just doing research about a lot of different stuff. Like the ancient aliens thing got me for a little while, but what I stumbled onto was a guy named Graham Hancock, who is this researcher that does a bunch of studying with tribal communities and with native communities. So he'll go to a place where a tribe of people, they might have advanced culturally or not, maybe not culturally is not the best word, but as far as a civilization, like technology and stuff,
right.
But they hold on to their stories and their history, and so I listened to some of his audiobooks. I like some bits of his audiobooks, but mostly I just listened to his interviews, and he was really, really compelling. And Ethan Filler says, my first conspiracy was the moon, and I struggle with that to this day. We're going to be talking about that, actually.
Conspiracy I first believed was McDonald's shake machine. Yo, that's not even a conspiracy. That shit is fact.
No, they're just lazy.
They just don't even turn it on. They're we're not fucking with this.
That Ethan says that's just true.
Yeah, they're just go to Baskin Robbins or Dairy Queen, bitch. Don't come to McDonald's for ice cream. McFuck you.
That's a good one, man. All right,
that's what I do that to it.
So in the more recent years, I've dug in, in the last 5 years or so, I still go down conspiracy rabbit holes and do research about stuff. And so I want to start out talking about the JFK assassination. And I want to say that before we get into his assassination specifically, for me, what's really interesting about this is the period of time that it takes place in, because it's 8 years later that his brother's killed. Maybe right. It's less than that.
I mean, throughout the whole 60s, lots of people died under really weird, in some cases, very overt.
Well, like Martin Luther King Jr. is a great example.
Bunchy Carter. Malcolm X. All these people died under weird circumstances. JFK. Right. So the 60s, I think, J. Edgar Hoover was going crazy, just fucking killing the shit out of people or finding ways to have people killed. So,
yeah. Well, I think that the thing that separates JFK out, I think, from the bunch is, I think, the fame of it is part of it. But the fame of that is specifically interesting because there is footage of the assassination. Like, you
Yeah.
can still find footage of that assassination.
Yes.
I found footage today and saw some pretty disturbing elements that I'd actually never seen before. Like, all the stuff that they blur out whenever you watch it, when you see the footage
his
on the news and
fucking
stuff.
brain matter is on the car.
Yeah, it's fucked up. It's fucked up.
Like, it's really fucking graphic.
Yeah, it's fucking terrible. And so, anyways, I think that having access to something like that is what makes this, like, there's like the police radio, which you can go listen to, like, what was going on with the police police chatter at the time. And then the whole story behind Lee Harvey Oswald, the actual killer, because, you know, with Robert Kennedy, his assassin, I can't remember his name. It's like Sirhan or something like that.
Yeah.
And he claims to not remember anything. And I think he's still in prison now, claiming having like no idea what happened.
They would let him out on parole, but he won't. He says he doesn't know what happened. That's the story he sticks to. And I mean, if you're inclined to believe that kind of stuff, there are other conspiracies that you could tie to.
I was actually just about to bring up the fact that MK Ultra is an example of a conspiracy that is true. We know they did that, and while they suggest, or they've said publicly, that nothing that happened, nothing they studied, and nothing that they worked on during that process ever bore any fruit, we don't necessarily know that that's true, right? There's no reason to know for a fact that that's true, or there's no reason to suspect they're not lying.
Like they would tell us if anything was successful. Like they're if it was successful, they're out there in the field using it, and we're not gonna know about it anyway.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
So what? And I mean, who's to say that it's like I said earlier, obviously not on the podcast, but while we were just texting back and forth, it fits into that weird Manchurian Candidate kind of thing. He doesn't remember shit about it, but he knows he did it.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
So.
But like with Lee Harvey Oswald, I mean, this guy is a character, right? Like he has a story leading up to it. He has a story after, like in the circumstances just after. And, you know, just in and of himself, like, I mean, the first thing that stood out to me, right? Like, I want to talk about, like, the actual, like, elements that called everything into question. But the first thing that stands out to me, just, like, looking at everything surface level is, okay, so Lee Harvey Oswald shoots the president. And he runs home, changes clothes, I guess, hides for a little bit, and then walks to the theater down the street. On the way there, he stumbles on a cop, and a cop recognizes him and says, "Hey, come here real quick." And he just shoots the cop. Which makes you suspicious, for sure. And then he goes into the theater and waits, essentially, to be arrested, is what it seems like. I mean, I don't know what happened in the confrontation. I don't know exactly what happened leading up to them arresting him, but it sounds to me as if he was just kind of like waiting in the theater, either for them or somebody else, like a handle.
Yeah.
But in either case, what makes it interesting is they take him into the police station, and then Jack Ruby, right? That's the guy that fucking shot him.
Jack Ruby
just shows up and shoots him. Shows up and shoots him. Just like shows up, shoots him, and like that's it. And I mean, that's just fucking weird, right? Like, right as he's saying, guys, I'm a patsy.
And he gets shot, right?
As soon as he says it.
And didn't Jack Ruby died in prison like a year or like shortly thereafter?
That I don't know about.
I think he died shortly after like a cancer or something crazy.
I mean, Ethan's our fact checker, so he might know that off the top of his head. But so let's talk about the stuff like that happened. Like, okay, there's a few different elements that call everything into question. That is my first thing. That's my first red light, is like he just gets shot in the police station just like that. Like in the most crowded police station ever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Interesting, but Oswald, Ruby, and Kennedy died in the same hospital.
That is kind of interesting.
Huh. But yeah, he died in 67 of cancer.
Okay. Well, all right. I'm liable to believe that's true, and
cancer.
Yeah. Right. just giving him the benefit of a doubt,
Right. Yeah.
But I guess what we have to talk about is let's talk about the things that make this suspicious. So what's the first thing that stands out to you as an element about the JFK thing?
I mean, the most obvious thing I'd say is the quote unquote magic bullet. I mean, how did it hit Kennedy the way that is described and hit the was it a congressman or a senator?
He was the governor. It was the governor of Texas.
Oh, okay. So it hit the governor in his back or shoulder or something and came out of his wrist. Like, there are just some weird things that don't line up with that.
The second the official story is the second bullet is the one that went through Kennedy's head. The first bullet goes through his neck, and that one goes in his neck, out of his neck, and hits the governor in like 3 different locations. And
right, so it went through him, still had all that velocity to bounce out of him through a seat,
right,
through the governor, through his body, and then out to break his arm.
Here's the thing that's also fucked up is like the bullet itself is in really great shape for all the places it traveled. So like if you've ever seen a bullet after you've shot, like I've gone hunting, and if you shoot a deer, sometimes you'll see the bullet. Sometimes, I mean, it's not that often, but they're fucking smashed, man. They don't like there's not
the bullet is fucked up.
Like it's not like a normal bullet, but this bullet is like in really great shape. So it is really literally the magic bullet. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many things about it that make it super weird and suspicious. But there's also things like a lot of people like to call out the Umbrella Man, which Umbrella Academy used as a main as a main aspect of the season 2 story or plot. But the Umbrella Man, now he's just basically I tried to do research on this today, and I wasn't able to get to that aspect of the research. So somebody can maybe educate me on this. But basically, umbrellas in and of themselves are symbolic of things. Like they're symbolic of like government overthrow and that kind of shit. It's been used in a lot of different it's been used in a lot of different political movements from like insiders or something like that, or it had been up to that point. But it's perfect weather. There's been no rain in like the last 48 hours or something. I think it rained the day before, but there was no forecast of rain that day. Everyone in the footage, everyone in the photos, not a single person is carrying an umbrella. If they are, it's concealed well. And they're not dressed for rain.
I was just going to say, no one's dressed for that kind of weather. I don't think anyone was expecting it to rain.
Well, and what's also interesting about it is that he had the umbrella closed and then opened during the shooting and then closed again, and he's sitting on a bench having a conversation with some dude casually. Now, the thing that's really freaky about this is there's photos of this guy, and the shooting has happened, and everyone in the grassy knoll is running around like crazy. Like, everyone's going nuts, except for him. He's just chilling.
And he's just standing there with his umbrella over his fucking head.
And that's fucking creepy, man. That's just like...
It's very odd, but what was the reasoning? Because they actually interviewed this guy. Mm-hmm. What did he say was his reason for holding the umbrella?
Okay, so I wasn't able to get footage or direct confirmation of this specific element, but apparently, this part I did find an interview, and I'm not going to quote him verbatim, but he basically said that the reason that he was so calm was that the umbrella obstructed his view of the shooting.
Right.
Yeah, you can hear the gunshots in the footage. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not quiet.
It's different if it's me where I grew up hearing a gunshot and maybe not ducking to the ground or flinching. But in the middle of downtown Dallas in 1960, hearing gunshots, you should be on the ground.
In that circumstance?
Exactly. You should be on the fucking ground unless you're trying to see something or you're a part of that shit.
And so the theory is that he opened to signal the shot, and then closed it after the second shot. Lifts it up higher to signal for the second shot, and then he closes it to end the shooting. Yeah. Okay. So that's the theory, and his explanation as to why he was calm is stupid. That's a stupid explanation. I'm sorry.
It's incredibly dumb.
But what the media uses as an explanation for the Umbrella Man is that he was protesting John F. Kennedy's father. And that's why he was using a black umbrella, and it was used so ominously in those circumstances. He was there
supposedly irritated him, or it was something about umbrellas he didn't like.
JFK's dad had a thing, and I forgot exactly what it is, but like I guess he was involved with like some crime bosses and shit like that. As I understand it, he wasn't a great guy, John F. Kennedy's dad, but and so
he's a Nazi sympathizer.
Yeah, and so it says there's also a theory that he shot a paralysis dart against JFK, which is
using the umbrella.
That's interesting. That's a little too 007 for me. That's pushing it a little far for me.
Yes,
but I will say that he is a weird guy. Like, that whole situation is weird and suspicious. So we've got the magic bullet, the fact that Lee Harvey Oswald is like saying, I'm a patsy, and then bam, he dies. In a crowded police station, you have the Umbrella Man, which the guy's fucking, the whole thing is weird with the Umbrella Man. But then it's, okay, let's for a second entertain the idea that maybe John F. Kennedy was assassinated by the CIA or the U.S. government.
Oh, for sure.
Let's entertain that for a second. What reason would they have for doing that?
Well, the same reasons they had for killing MLK and Malcolm X, and I said Bunchy Carter earlier, and Robert Kennedy as well.
Well,
they
later,
were challenging.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they were challenging the status quo.
Right.
They were trying to change the world.
So
change the way things were done in the United States as well as everywhere else. So
right.
That's what all these guys had in common.
Well, let's think about this for just a second, because if we're being fair to history, JFK was not about to end the Vietnam War, from what I was able to find. There is no evidence that he was trying to end it. In fact, in all of his public appearances where he discussed it, his line was that if we leave South Asia now, or something along those, if we leave Asia now, Southeast Asia, I think is how he put it, it will destroy itself. It'll consume itself. It'll be too unstable, which has basically been our excuse for staying in the Middle East for the last 20 years.
Oil.
Right. So Ethan is, he says he actually testified that he was using the umbrella because this Nazi that Kennedy's dad was friends with always had an umbrella like it, and he was just the wrong guy at the wrong place and at the wrong time. Interesting. Okay, so I was right. I just didn't have all the details. So for me, like, okay, let's look at what JFK was doing. He was working on progressing civil rights.
Yes.
And it was a really big, it was a really big deal to him. And it was really big for him that those that are wealthy and those that are doing well provide to the government in a way that can help those that are at the bottom of the economy and keep everybody from suffering. That's where the line, ask not what you can do for yourself, but what the country
can do for your country.
What your country can do for you, but for what you can do for your country. He was talking about basically rich people putting money in a pot that would assist those that are poor or lower income or less wealthy. So he also, there is proof that JFK was working to rid the entire Earth of nukes. He had a whole plan where he wanted to disable a few at a time, but basically he wanted in the next 10 years for there to be no nukes.
And back then, that was actually a plausible thing. Nowadays,
we're way too
no way.
Yeah, we're way too far into that now.
But golly, But back then, that definitely was something that could have been done. So trying to get rid of the nukes, trying to make the nation live out the promise of its creed.
Right. Right.
That all men are created equal.
Right.
Right. He's like, hey, let's give these guys their voting rights back. Since we took them away.
Right. Which is the most fucked up part, because like in Texas, for instance, if you were black, you could vote right after you became free for a period of time. And then they literally took it away. Like
Reconstruction. And then once they said, fuck Reconstruction, they were like, hey, we got this guy. Have you met Jim Crow?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Dante Arias, I got to pause real quick. Dante has been a supporter of Screen Break Entertainment for a long, long time. I love Dante. He's been a big supporter. I appreciate you coming by, Dante, and popping in to say hi. I miss you, man. I'm glad to see you in the chat. All right,
Dante.
I want to get into what Ethan said here. So Ethan actually, I haven't read it yet, so it looks like he might have something to correct me on here. It says JFK wanted to leave the war, but his war director McNamara wanted to stay, so he had to publicly state that he didn't want to leave because Lyndon was a very big supporter of the war. McNamara talked about it in the documentary about his involvement. Okay, perfect. See, Ethan, I told y'all I wasn't able to do a crazy amount of research, but so it also appears that he was sympathetic to the war, or he did not want to stay in Vietnam. So all of those things, you put those things together, he was bucking the status quo.
Right. It was the perfect storm for that, for him to be taken care of.
Well, and he's just he's like, look, man, I see where this is going, and we got to stop it before it gets out of control. Mm-hmm. And I think partly he was inspired by Eisenhower, who famously made the quote. This isn't an exact quote, but he famously said that the largest enemy to the United States is the military-industrial complex. And I think that had a lot to do with why he wanted to get rid of the nukes. Like he wanted to put those aside and slowly get rid of them until we had none left. Well, DJ Hannibal Royce, the idea of getting rid of nukes, it wasn't that he wanted to get rid of nukes just in the United States. He wanted to get rid of nukes, period. And
right,
like his idea was to inspire the rest of the world by us getting rid of some of our nuclear arms and hopefully working with the UN to encourage everybody else to get rid of theirs until eventually nobody had nukes.
Right, because just depending on mutually assured destruction, I mean, it's not the greatest, because if somebody doesn't fucking care, then they don't care. They just want destruction, right? So if there are no nukes for mutually assured destruction to even exist, then I'd rather be on that side of it. Can you imagine how Robert Oppenheimer felt?
Well, not to mention that it's oh no, not disable the news, the nukes. Nuke killer. I mean, George Bush used to say that's not a bad impression of George Bush. That's not a bad impression. All right, so I think that there's ample reason why the government or those in power would have wanted to get rid of him. And maybe there's more reasons that we haven't even discussed here.
So at some point, the government actually admitted to MLK's family that they killed him.
Oh, did they?
They actually admitted it.
Okay.
Right. So if our government can kill him, they're admitting to killing him.
There's no
reason that they wouldn't kill JFK.
Right. Right.
Especially if he was going against what they wanted him to do.
Right.
So I'm a big proponent of this conspiracy. I totally think there's way more to his death than he just got shot by one guy.
Before we move on past this, because we do have other stuff to talk about, but before we move on past this, if that is the case, if there was a conspiracy, where do you lean? Do you lean on the that it was the U.S. government or that it was Russia? Because Russia has done its own research and released its own message because they thought they might have been part of it. That there might have been somebody rogue with the KGB that had had hired an assassin, and so they thought that was totally plausible, but they've denied having anything to do with it.
I don't think it was Russia. I think it was the good old United States of America that pulled all the strings in that. I mean, now I don't know. Maybe I don't know what Russia's involvement in the in the Lee Harvey Oswald aspect of it, because who knows? Right. Maybe he helped train him.
He defected to the Soviet Union for a while.
Yeah,
so
he did, but that could have all been a part of this.
So I want to take a moment.
You don't even know.
Oh, I'm not trying to interrupt your train of thought. I just wanted to say we have 8 likes already on the stream, and I appreciate that very much, guys. Thank you so much for coming by and being supportive, for being there with us. Now, another thing I want to say is, like, they did the MacArthur report. I think I'm saying that right. I think it was the MacArthur report. McCarthy report? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think it's McCarthy.
And in either case, they did the report, and Lyndon B. Johnson was part of the group that had put that together. And he said himself, after going through it, even though the McCarthy report specifically stated that it was Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone as a lone gunman, he specifically said that he does not believe, after looking at everything, that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. So, and, there's also the conspiracy that maybe LBJ had been a part of the assassination attempt.
I've heard that one too.
Because he and JFK weren't really fond of each other, and he was trying to find a way to get in. But, yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing, right? All the witnesses from around the time that were in the grassy knoll specifically said, did it all with the Umbrella Academy. I got you, Dante. Everyone that was a bunch of people witnesses that were in the grassy knoll, the area where the guy was with the umbrella, said that they heard gunshots nearby, as in next to them.
Like very close to them.
Right. So like several witnesses, not just a couple. And then what's beyond that even is that the doctors that examined him, like the original doctors, and even like Walter Cronkite, there's a report of him talking about this, that the initial explanation was that he had been shot in the front on the right side of his temple, and it had exited out the back of his head. They released an official illustration of the back of his head after the shot. And if you watch
even the autopsy reports, yes, the video looks like his brains are on the trunk.
It's not even just that, but like the way he reacts to the shot, his head goes back. And if Lee Harvey Oswald's shooting him from the back, there's no fucking way that's happening.
Right. And they say that his head slumps forward a little bit, but they explained that away by the car. They said the car decelerated a little bit and he kind of leaned forward.
Well, I mean,
people say that he might have gotten hit by 2 bullets at the same time, or
that's fine. But when that bullet hits him, his head goes back like that. The impact pushes him. I watched the video, the actual uncut video today. I actually made myself watch it, and it goes back. So before we move on to the next topic, to the next conspiracy, in a scale of 0 to 5, what the fucks?
Okay.
How would you rate this conspiracy as believable? Not anything specific, but that JFK, that there's a lot more to that story.
So my ranking of on a scale of 0 to 5, for there being some sort of conspiracy related to the JFK assassination, I'm gonna say 4.5 out of 5.
4.5 out of 5. All right, I'm gonna go 4.5 out of 5 too. I'm gonna leave it open to the possibility that maybe it is exactly like the McCarthy report says, and negating any possibility that it could be anything else. I think leaving a little bit of room, but I think the chances are highly likely that he was assainated and that there's a conspiracy behind it.
Yeah, J. Edgar Hoover.
Well, he was assassinated, but that there was a conspiracy behind it.
J. Edgar Hoover called for that shit while he was sitting in his office in a pair of stockings.
That's fucked up.
I mean, look, I'm not knocking him. That's some shit he did.
Yeah.
But that's why he was going so hard after everybody else. He's just trying to keep his own fucking secrets.
Right.
Well, Hoover was a piece of shit.
Ethan Filler says 4 what the fucks. So that's fair. That's fair as well. All right. So the next conspiracy that we're going to talk about, we are going to talk about the moon landing, and I had that next, but because Ethan is such a fan of that conspiracy, because it's something that he still thinks about these days. Before we get on to that, let's trash the fuck out of the flat Earth conspiracy.
Oh, can we please?
Oh my God, guys!
Can we please?
The Earth is round.
These fucking
it's a sphere,
idiots, man. You know the thing that kills me the most about flat earthers, man, is they'll see a picture of another planet and be like, "Oh yeah, it's round. It's round." But then they'll see a picture.
We're the
of Earth
one
and
planet
say, oh,
in
no.
the whole.
Yeah. They're tricking you.
This whole idea that NASA is lying to us. Like, I've heard people go down rabbit holes of explaining like everything's CGI. Look, there's actually some truth to that. When they take a picture of Earth and they put it on NASA or whatever, there is some truth to that. It's several images that have been compiled together to put that image. So it is technically CGI. Like they're using computers to put all of these images together in a way, but they are real images that were taken.
Right. It's not computer generated, but
right. Well, I mean,
all the images are put together by a computer, but they aren't generated by the computer.
But here's another thing that's funny about that whole thing. Oh shit! I actually just had I just had a fucking a point to say about that, but I fucking just lost it. But that's okay. That's no big deal.
Maybe it'll come back to you. But we can point and laugh at these fools. So the Arctic Circle is in the center.
Yes.
And Antarctica is a 150-foot wall of ice
wrapped all
that surrounds
the
disk.
And
is Earth.
And Earth is flat with a dome over top, and all the stars that we see are just little holes poked into the dome so that aliens or God can watch over us. Guys, this is literally what was believed before we believed in the heliocentric universe, before we believed that we weren't the center of the universe.
There are people that these flat earthers think we're the center of the universe.
Okay.
Some of them. I mean, they're split. There are different sects of these people.
I do want to trash the conspiracy theory itself, but having said that, before we get too far into it, I will say that these guys are trying to convince themselves. Like, a lot of them have actually done studies and they're trying to find ways to prove it. Like, one guy financed a rocket so he could launch himself and hit the top of the dome, and he died.
Mike Hughes.
Yeah.
He got off in the first one and crash landed and was still like, oh, the earth is still flat. I don't believe you. And then he made a more powerful rocket and he killed his fucking self.
Well, and there's actually
2020. Actually, he died this year.
There's actually I'm very confused as to what Xavier is saying. We are about, so he'll have to enlighten me.
We are VR troopers, bro.
But here's what I'll say, man. Like, the Earth itself, we might as well be angels. I'm confused, Xavier. You're gonna have to elaborate for me. All right, so okay, I watched a whole YouTube video. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes. We put it on at the machine shop, and we watched this 2 hour and 10 minute video. And I think it's like this famous flat Earth conspiracy video where they get people that sound like they know what they're talking about and sound like they might have some kind of scientific evidence and like seem semi-believable sometimes. But then in the same thing, they'll say things like, well, if the Earth was round, why aren't people in Australia constantly falling? Bro,
that's
gravity.
another thing.
Gravity.
They don't believe in gravity.
But that's the thing is like gravity is how everything fucking works, bro. Like,
but how do you not believing in gravity is like not believing in air.
You know, I can prove gravity.
Yeah.
I'll put water in a bucket and spin it really, really fast. Gravity. Bam. Like that. It's centrifugal force. But that's what that's what the whole point of that's what gravity is. It's everything spinning and drawing. I guess weight and energy to itself. Like Earth has.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. I'm not a scientist. I'm gonna do a terrible job of explaining fucking gravity. Yvonne, how's it going? Welcome to the stream.
Yvonne, what up?
I'm gonna do a terrible job of explaining that. But in either case,
Look, Earth's gravity is an illusion. Objects do not accelerate downwards. Instead, the disk of Earth accelerates upward at 32 feet per second squared.
bruh.
Driven up by a mysterious force called dark energy.
Okay, but this is exactly what I was talking about, where these guys are working hard to believe this theory, and they're trying to use science and math and everything else to prove it. They're not just like naysaying, they're trying to prove themselves right. Now, every time they try, they somehow manage to prove themselves more wrong, but
even more wrong.
But my point is that they're coming at this from like a scientific perspective, as sideways as that sounds, in the sense that they're creating experiments and trying to. The problem is that they're trying to prove what they already believe, as opposed to following the evidence.
Right, exactly.
Which is what science actually is. But they are trying some form of a scientific method to try to wrap their heads around it. So it's not that they're morons. That they actually no, man, like there's some of them are. But there's some intelligent people that are a part of this movement, and it's because I think part of it is that they want to believe that there's some fantastical thing that's duped everybody around them, and that they're the ones that have the key.
And when you ask them for the key, they can't give you the key because they can't explain why anyone would lie about why the Earth is round.
It doesn't do anybody good. Yeah, that's another.
There's no explanation that any one of them can come up with as to why scientists would lie about the Earth being flat. Like,
exactly.
Are the frost giants gonna come out and kill us if we fucking say the Earth's round? Like, I don't get it. Like, none of it makes sense at all. This one's ridiculous. I
want to get Xavier Morales to give me a little bit more information on what he's saying. He says, we might as well be angels. I just want to understand what that. I'm assuming that's what he means. We might as well be angels. I'm assuming, I'd really like to get some more information on that. But let's see. I wrote a couple things. So like. They think that, I said this already, that all footage from space is faked, that NASA used CGI to lie to us. The Earth is flat with, went over that. And then, this is my favorite thing. You can't see the curvature of the Earth from the surface of the Earth.
Come on, man.
If I put a single lice or lie, whatever you fucking call those little tiny bugs that go in your hair, and I put it on a basketball, do you think that it's going to be able to see the roundness of the basketball?
Absolutely not.
From its perspective, it's fucking flat.
Right.
It looks flat.
It's essentially on a globe, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, and here's the other thing. This is what I was going to say earlier, DJ Hannibal Royce, about the in response to your thank you, what the fuck, was you can watch the SpaceX rockets live launch from the surface of the Earth, leave Earth's atmosphere, dock the space station, give the space station supplies, and then come back down and land on Earth. You can watch the entire fucking thing live. It takes like 45 minutes to an hour, I think, maybe a little bit longer. If the Earth was flat, we would be able to see the end. I mean, that's actually not a really not necessarily true, because there's atmospheric fog. So like the further you get out,
well, you might not be able to see.
But
I
see what
you don't think.
Well, you could put a telescope. You could line up a telescope and like see. You know, like, if we can see the moon and Mars and with a telescope, you'd be able to see. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, but if it was flat, you don't think there'd be some fucking explorer or jackass? They don't have to be one and the same, but try and go find the end of the earth just to go. I jumped off the end of the earth. Like,
yeah. Well, and DJ Hannibal Royce says, if the world was flat, how can we fly around the world? They have an answer to that. It's pretty weird.
They do,
but they do have an answer to that. They say that we fly over. Basically, we fly over the center.
Well, they actually believe
their
that
center.
GPS devices are rigged to make airplane pilots think they're flying in straight lines when they're really just flying around in circles.
Yeah, around. So
what the fuck?
So having said all of that, look, man, if you're a flat earther, I don't know what to tell you, man. You're kind of holding on to something that I think you should let go of. There's
lots of scientific evidence.
There's too much evidence to prove this. Yeah, there's too much evidence to say otherwise. So, so I'm not trying to hate on y'all as people. If you're listening to this, I love everybody. As long as you're not hurting anybody with your bullshit, I don't give a fuck. But I'm just saying, for your own sake, a lot of your time could be spent better not doing that. Not buying into that conspiracy.
Yeah, this one's tough, man. There's just plenty of scientific evidence that shows you this, instead of you trying to manufacture evidence to prove your point when you know damn well the earth isn't flat. You're probably a great person. I'm sure I like you, but
you just believe a stupid conspiracy.
I can't rock with the flat earth thing. This gets a 0 out of 5. What the fucks?
Me. Yeah, me too, man. 0 out of 5. What the fucks? I
give 0 fucks.
In the chat, let us know in the chat. What are y'all? How many what the fucks? 0 out of 5. How many are between 0 and 5? How many what the fucks? How many what the fucks do you guys rate that? And DJ Hannibal Roy said something funny here. He said, if the world was flat, TikTokers would be jumping off the edge just for clout. Right.
Fucking falling into the damn abyss.
Facts. Never mind the fact that none of the shit that we use would work if it doesn't matter. Anyways. So, Ethan, I hope you're still in here, because now we're going to talk about the moon landing.
Oh, yeah.
So, I want to hear your perspective on the moon landing before I drop some information on it.
I'm just of the school of thought that we made it to the moon. It's very difficult for me to believe that we didn't. There's clearly evidence supporting that we got there. I mean, I did some research into why people believe that it didn't happen, and I'm open to hearing new facts if there's some actual facts about it. But
yeah, I mean, Ethan says he's still struggling with it, so maybe he knows something I don't know. I'm open to hearing more about it. But here's what I know as things that are evidences that people level at the moon landing. One is, well, this is kind of contradicting another perspective, but one of them is that, like, in the video, the background is like almost purely black.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, that's not possible. There's stars. You're out in space. You should be able to see everything. There's no atmosphere. And I think everybody's missing the point that, first of all, these are kind of shitty cameras. I mean, good for their time, but they're shitty cameras, and the sun is directly hitting the surface of the moon. The light of the sun is directly hitting the surface of the moon, creating an incredible amount of bright bounce light. Okay, we're gonna talk about that, Ethan. We're gonna talk about the Stanley Kubrick thing. But the other thing is, like people have pointed out, the flag, after they plant it, it's still it looks as if wind is affecting it. All right. Neil deGrasse Tyson has done a good job of explaining this, but the simple answer is the gravity on the moon is minimal. Like it's close to none, especially compared to what we have here on Earth.
But there is some gravity.
Right. And so when they put the flag into the surface of the moon, the effects, the reverberation and vibration that went down that flagpole that holds the flag both from the edge and from the top, it's still bouncing from that. It's still vibrating, basically reverberating from that. So that's the answer as to what that is, right? That's not wind.
I think. So think about how many people were involved in the Apollo project. 10 years long, 12 people who walked on the moon. The
rocket that actually
other
did lift
pilots,
off.
right? Scientists, engineers, techs, mechanics. It would be. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount of people that, and not to mention the people that died doing this stuff, right?
Beyond that, the actual if you look,
that conspiracy would crush under the weight of itself if the United States didn't actually make it to the moon.
Well, you can also think about it like this, in that there are, as you said, so many people working, so many people had to keep a secret for so long. But beyond that, even a rocket did lift off. Like, even if you don't believe that it went to space, there's literally footage of a rocket shooting off into space that looks identical to all the other rockets shooting off into space that we've seen over the course of the last, 5 decades. Yeah. That in and of itself would be a really, really expensive parlor trick just to convince everybody. But let's see what Ethan has said here. He said, also, just kind of look at the technology back then. There's little to no way that they could use that to get to where we did. I think there is a possibility that soon after that we landed on the moon, but the initial moon landing, I think, could have been a propaganda film to help in the Cold War. That's possible. But here's my thing. Let's talk about Stanley Kubrick basically admitting it. Actually, that's one of the notes that I have on my page here, is that as I wrote it, it says, The Shining is an elaborate admission by Kubrick that he was behind the faked footage, and several pieces of the film suggest this. Which, before I get into those pieces of the film, there's also the detail that some people think that the backdrop being used is the same backdrop that's used in 2001: A Space Odyssey when he's in space. And so that's the first thing. But let's talk about the details in the film, right? So, like, the little boy's wearing a Apollo 11 shirt, right? There is an element of, there's a period of the movie before he discovers, is it room 237? I think it's 237. Before he discovers room 237, where he's going down hallways, and there's an element of that carpeting that actually does look like the landing pod that they landed on the moon with. And now he goes in, he's wearing the Apollo 11 shirt, and again, I think it's 237. I could be wrong on this, but in the film it's 237, but in the book it's like 214 or 217.
Right.
And the book that the movie is based off of. And that seems like a really strange detail to change just for the hell of it. But if you think about it from the perspective that the moon is, I think, again, I might have some numbers backwards. I might be being dyslexic here, but I think it's 237,000 miles away is how far the moon is from Earth, which is why they think that Kubrick would have changed the room number from 217 to 237 as another indicator of the moon landing. But then the boy walks into room 237, and when he comes out, he's injured, and he's got like a cut across his throat. It's been a while since I've seen this, but like he's got like a little cut or whatever around his throat, which is people see as like a metaphor for Kubrick being silenced.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. The boy flying the toy ship, it's 237. Okay, I was right about that. To do with the moon landing, and it's explicitly different than the book. Right. That's what we just discussed. Here's the thing. There's the other thing that, like, there's Tang in the pantry when he gets locked in the pantry, but I don't know, man.
I mean, when I was rumors... Yeah, I mean, I'm sure these rumors were already flying back then about this, right? Like,
well, there's a whole documentary of it now, Room 237. You can watch a bunch of people try to break it down.
I think it may have been him playing a bit into it, especially if it was maybe not a hugely common thing, but if rumors were already circulating about this being a possibility, why wouldn't a cerebral guy like Kubrick play into that?
Well, he was a smart guy. Just for the fuck of it, I guess he practiced like complex like mathematics on sets. Like he would just fuck around with shit like that for the hell of it. All right, but here's my thing, Ethan. It does appear that at some point Kubrick might have actually spilled the beans that he did work with the deep state. That's just gonna be my blanket term for them.
The deep state.
Yeah, I know it's hard to say that now because Trump has turned that term into something different. But there is apparently at some point he did say something that he might have done some work, but my explanation for that is that it makes sense to me that the government might have hired Kubrick to shoot something in the event that we weren't able to land on the moon.
Especially back then.
So that we could still have something to make it seem like we had.
But that video was actually proven to be a hoax. The one where he supposedly admits to
really?
things for the government. Yeah, it was proven to be a fake, a hoax.
Okay.
So
in the research I did today, I didn't get to that point.
So there's no record of him saying that.
Here's the thing.
From what we know now.
Do I put it past our government to do something like that? No. I don't put it past our government to waste a bunch of fucking money.
Nothing past those motherfuckers.
Just to lie about getting to the moon. It doesn't even, like, that's not even a struggle for me. We waste trillions of dollars in this war in the Middle East that hasn't gotten us fucking anywhere. So it's easy for me to believe that they would spend an ungodly amount of money just to fake it. But I have not seen a single piece of evidence that convinces me that we did not land on the moon. And Ethan, I get what you're saying, and I do understand like this perspective. Like we didn't even have the technology back then, but we did. Like that's the thing. Like the actual process of like landing on the moon, shooting a rocket, and landing on we did actually have the technology for that.
It wasn't all done by computer, right? Like they had people downstairs. They had people back on Earth, like going through the math to get those trajectories, right? Like that's why the ladies from Hidden Figures are so big, because their math fucking saved people, right? It helped with this whole getting to the moon and back stuff,
right?
So we didn't need computers to do all that heavy lifting. I don't know exactly what they used all the computers for inside of there, but I'm sure really it was to control air and shit like that, and maybe they had some dials that they needed to use, but they got to them. They didn't need all that because they had people actually doing the heavy lifting for them. So
Heartbreak, this is one of my good friends from the KI community. What's up, buddy? In fact, fun fact about Heartbreak, my first PlayStation 4 was a gift from Heartbreak.
Oh, nice.
I'm assuming it's the same Heartbreak. It might not be. But if it's not, welcome to the stream.
Yeah, and if you aren't, you should just take credit for it anyway.
Yeah, just take credit for it anyways.
Right, like, yeah, that was me, yeah.
But Heartbreak and I are friends on Twitter, or follow each other on Twitter, and I did tweet this out. But actually, the link on Twitter is now incorrect. So, well.
I was worried about that too, but Yvonne showed up, so they must be able to find it. So No.
Well, we appreciate everybody that's in there hanging out with us right now and hanging out in the chat. So Ethan says, the reason I now believe otherwise is that there are 5 pre-recorded videos of Nixon saying different things, like every scenario of the moon landing, which would be crazy to record for no reason. Well, I mean, it's the same thing as like the fake video or filming a fake version of the video just in case. It's they wanted, regardless of whether or not they landed, they wanted to make it seem like it was successful. That is enough to me. And Nixon was a fucking cheapskate and piece of shit anyways. So.
Oh my God.
I don't have
Tricky Dick.
Tricky Dick. I think that's such a funny fucking nickname.
If my name was Richard, you bet your ass you'd be calling me Dick.
Yes, I would.
You can bet. I'd be like, yo, please, I'd name my son Richard and be like, that's Little Dick and I'm Big Dick.
Big Dick's dick created Little Dick.
Exactly. Makes sense.
God damn it. So look, I'm not of the mindset that it's impossible that the moon landing was faked, but I have not seen a single bit of evidence so far that has convinced me otherwise. Not anything like I have like with JFK.
Yeah.
Just the video evidence itself, like directly, is enough to me. That's like something ain't fucking adding up.
Yeah, it's just shit. Like, so the moon landing, like there are things about it. The moon landing conspiracy. There are things about it that are believable. But there's just too much evidence showing that it actually happened.
Right.
Like for me to lean too far into it being recorded or some kind of film. So
right. DJ Hannibal Roy says that comment gets a 5 out of 5. What the fucks? All right, man. So how many what the fucks would you rate the moon landing?
Moon landing, just because of what you said, like I could see just them doing it if there was no fucking chance we could get to the moon just to try and end the Cold War. But I'm fairly certain that's not how it happened. So I'm gonna give this a 1 out of 5 what the fucks.
I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna give this a 2 out of 5 what the fucks. And basically, my thing is that I don't put it beyond our government to do something like this at all.
For sure.
I don't put it past our government, and that in and of itself is enough for me to at least entertain the idea. But again, I have not seen enough evidence to support it.
Right. Now, we might have some huge data cache get leaked and.
Yeah, man, I'd be happy to be fucking wrong. That's
find all the boom, like the dudes holding boom mics, like with Neil Armstrong right there. One small step for man.
Wouldn't that be so fucked up if like we've been missing it this whole time?
God.
There's like a reflection of like a guy holding a boom mic.
Right. Hey, you can fucking see Stanley Kubrick in the back, like with a cup of coffee and some shit. Like, turn that shit off.
So DJ Hannibal Royce and Ethan Fillard both give it a 3 out of 5 what the fucks. Heartbreak says, this topic is interesting. I do think it was real, but I think they may have had something in case it didn't happen. Yeah. That's kind of where we
I'm with you, Heartbreak.
That's kind of where we fell with that as well. So now we're getting into the topic, and this work is working out exactly like I hoped it would. I was hoping we would have our last hour to dedicate to this, because oh boy, is there so much to talk about with this topic. One of my favorite shows of all time, by the way, guys, is X-Files. So
my kids think that is just the designated music for creepy shit.
Yeah.
No idea it's tied to an actual show. I'm like, no, that's a theme song for X-Files. Nah, bro. It's a conspiracy song. Leave me alone.
Oh man. Okay, so we're gonna talk about UFOs.
Yes.
Now, this isn't really a conspiracy, but like I'm open to the idea of like ghosts and like supernatural elements and stuff like that. So I'm not. I like what Rogan has said this before. I don't not believe in ghosts, for instance, but they're not really a conspiracy, so that's not really the point of topic of conversation. But my point in bringing that up is I've always been entertained by UFOs and ghosts and the idea of them and all the rest of that stuff. Hold on. Ethan says, did you know Neil Armstrong became an alien hunter after the moon stuff?
That's not that shocking. I did not know that, though. That's pretty interesting.
Your kids are right. Fucking weird, bruh. This topic. Oh, heartbreak. You're not a fan of talking about UFOs? My daughter carries... his daughter carries...
carries on his work to this day.
Oh, to this day. So
Neil Armstrong's daughter is alien hunting too.
That is really weird, right? Like, that's almost like the weird coincidence that Arthur Fleck is the name of Joker, while and that was being made while Ben Affleck was still expected to be the DCEU's Batman. To
do sad Batman.
You got to look off into the distance, like.
Right, he looks so hurt.
You can't even see my mouth, so all you're seeing is my eyes. All right. I love the UFO conspiracy, man. There's so much about this topic that I have to talk about.
Too much.
There literally this is gonna be a fun part of the podcast. And look, man, Ethan, if Neil Armstrong was an alien hunter or became an alien hunter and his daughter carries on his work, that's fucking dope. But I'll take your word for it, because I have not done a single ounce of research whatsoever into anything like that. But so UFOs are an interesting topic because we are going to talk about ancient aliens. That's the second part to this, and we're going to bring it all back to this part. But I was a hard skeptic of UFOs until I had a personal experience in that regard, and now I may not believe in aliens, but I believe in unidentified crafts. Interesting.
You're getting there, man.
Interesting. So it's almost as if you believe in like the extra dimensional being idea, that they're like from another dimension, but on Earth. That's an interesting theory. I don't know if that's what you're saying you subscribe to, but I have a bunch, like, this is where I took most of my notes. So like I'm gonna show you guys, like I was doing research all day today and like taking notes, and like so like I wrote down like a bunch of shit. I got like arrows, and like I'm fucking, man, and I didn't even actually finish all the research I wanted to do. So we're gonna do some research as we talk about this live. I've got some links pulled up ready to go for us.
Yeah.
All right, so UFOs in the United States as a cultural phenomenon has been a big deal for I haven't, Ethan, and I'm happy to hear about the floating bodies in Mexico, but I need to get through a little bit of this first before we jump down that rabbit hole. So, the history of UFOs in American culture, it kind of begins in the 40s, starting with the Battle of Los Angeles, which if you haven't looked it up, it's super fucking crazy, man. But that took place in February of 1942, which is actually not long after Pearl Harbor. And basically it happened on the 24th and the 25th. And it was originally thought when it was, as it was happening, they thought we were being bombed by the Japanese again.
Yes.
We thought we were being attacked by the Japanese again, which is why they blacked out the entire city or the entire county. So like all radios except for like a select few were told to turn themselves off, and basically the entire, like, all the electricity was shut off. So everybody had nothing to look at but what was going on. And there's like spotlight shining at this figure. There's pictures. You can look up the pictures of this happening. Now,
it looks crazy.
It's worth noting that there has never been a definitive story provided exactly as to what happened.
Mm-hmm.
The government and the military have gone back and forth. But here's what we do know for a fact, that anti-aircraft guns were fired into the sky They exploded in the sky. There's again, you can find footage and pictures of this shit. And Scarecrow, how's it going? Welcome to the stream, and welcome to the podcast. So with the anti-aircraft guns fired, nothing. If there were Japanese planes, none of them fucking fell. If there was a weather balloon and you shot a missile at a weather balloon, that balloon's gonna explode.
Yes,
bro.
1,400 shells.
Yeah.
1,400 that's a lot of fucking shells. And if you've ever seen an anti-aircraft shell, the motherfucker's like your forearm.
Right. And so, let's see. It says, my notes here, it says, so this is how the government handled it. Like, so at the day after, or a few days after, the government said that it was a false alarm. They were like, nothing happened. But the people that were in Los Angeles were like, no, something fucking happened. We were here.
Yeah.
Like, no.
We saw that shit.
So after like being hounded by the civilians that were present at the time, they changed their story and blamed it on a weather balloon.
Just absolutely. Why is it always a weather balloon?
Well, that's where the weather balloon thing started. That's where it all started.
Is
that's where it
the
started.
Came from?
That's where it started.
What? It's just such a dumb excuse, man.
Yeah, they could have come up with like literally anything.
Lipstick on your collar. It was grandma. Dummy. Like, it's just.
My coworker's dog has a really weird shaped tongue. All right.
I don't even know where to go.
I don't know either, man. So that was like the very first event, like alien UFO event that happened in the United States. That was that drew some attention. And then 5 years later, in 1947,
Harold Dahl,
the Roswell incident. As we call it, as it is, I guess technically officially called, the Roswell incident happened, and basically how this happened was a rancher that was in New Mexico just discovered this crash site as he was like going around, riding around his land or just around his land or whatever, and he finds this crash site and he sees like tinfoil everywhere and rubber and wires and just a bunch of shit. And he doesn't understand what it is. So he just kind of like collects some of it, takes it home, and I guess tells himself he's going to forget about it. Or he's just not going to think much about it. But then the next day, an article goes out from his local newspaper saying that some people had seen UFOs in the area, unidentified flying objects. And that made him suspicious. So the next day, he went to the cops. And he talked to the sheriff of police. And the sheriff of police told him directly, you need to take that home and keep your mouth shut. You might have just seen a flying disc. After the rancher left, I don't remember his name. I didn't write that part down, honestly. It was in the research that I did. I just didn't write it down.
William Brazel.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you, sir. That's his name, William Brazel. And so the sheriff then called the military, the local military, and asked them what it could have been and basically told them about the report that he had received. And the military then just goes to this guy's property, goes into his house, takes all of his shit that he's brought and says, keep your mouth shut. You didn't see anything. And that's it. Yeah, that's it. Literally, the military shows up, confiscates everything he took home, and says, keep your mouth shut. That's it. And I guess like a couple days later, they made an official report that it was a weather balloon. Second time that excuse was used.
That's the government go-to.
Scarecrow here says, not a conspiracy theory, but one of my favorite political power plays was when Kim Jong-il kidnapped a Japanese film director to make make a movie about a giant monster who eats metal called Pulgasari?
Pulgasari. Huh.
Interesting. I don't know much about this. Can you do us a favor and like tweet us a link or something like that?
I need to hear more about this. Damn, he kidnapped somebody and make a movie for him.
I feel like I've heard that element, but I haven't heard all the details about it. So I'd love to hear more about that. So then after this Roswell incident, years later, this is now this is 30 years later in the early 1980s. So almost 40 years later, a book comes out called The Roswell Incident, and it's written by two men called Charles Berlitz and William L. Moore. And basically, they just claim it's a big government cover-up, and this whole book is just tearing down the official story.
Right. They interviewed 90 people for this, so they had a broad swath of people.
Like witnesses, eyewitnesses, and stuff
people who saw this or who knew somebody, but they interacted with a lot of people to find information for this book that they wrote. But
excuse me, sorry.
Man, no, good.
Drinking water and it going down the rhyme.
But they're accounts of witness intimidation. Like they're trying to. Why do you want to shut people up about it, right? Like
right.
That automatically makes it seem weird and fishy when you're trying to scare people into shutting up about something like that.
And so here's the thing, right? So like years later, the government, the military, and experts, and I don't, honestly, in the research I did, it just said experts. I don't know what experts actually means, right? But
quote unquote experts.
But they disputed and debunked the stories and accounts done in this book. Mm-hmm. So that is that, kind of. But then in 1994, this is really funny, right? So then in 1994, the Air Force finally comes out and has its own admission saying it wasn't a typical weather balloon. It was a spy balloon. They had basically rigged this, according to them, they had rigged this very complex piece of equipment, this very complex weather balloon that was actually sent up into the atmosphere to receive sound waves or broadcasts that might have been sent through the airwaves from Russia. That was their explanation. But the reason that it had been disposed of was because it was quote unquote failed. It did not work. So that's their official story. That it wasn't a weather balloon. It was like a spy balloon, like disguised as a weather balloon. Like they're coming up with their own like little wacky conspiracies now. Like this is, it's kind of weird.
Yeah. We've got a former colonel who reported in one of his books that the crash happened when he was assigned to a base in Kansas. But he says it was 5 trucks, 25 that hauled out 25 tons of shit and some semi-trailers.
25 tons is a lot of weight.
Yeah, that's a fuck ton of shit, man. Sergeant Brown shows the remnants of bodies that were from a quote unquote air crash.
Okay, so the bodies, they explained the bodies as they were crashed, like they were basically crash test dummies that were aboard to test the effects on the human body if they were to send a human up with it or something like that.
Well, why didn't they look like people?
Again, this is the official story.
Nonsense. Yeah,
like the quote-unquote official story.
That's Heartbreak says, I was once at a party with my family about 10 to 12, and we saw a bunch of these strange lights in the sky. 15 minutes later, we saw what could only be described as a light that was huge, approximately a mile away from our location over the coast. It was at least 500 meters wide. And the other lights inside of it disappeared. It made a strange, loud sound when it appeared and disappeared.
We all stood frozen for 5 minutes in disbelief.
Yeah, that's insane, man.
That is absolutely insane.
That's insane. You got your own fucking UFO story. Now I've seen some weird stuff in the sky, but I don't know, man. I've seen some weird stuff in the sky. Nothing like that's just like, oh my god, but like. How's that flying like that? And it's all of 3 or 4 seconds and it's gone.
I have,
I
have only one instance where I thought I might have seen a UFO. I was 9 I was like on my way to basketball practice, and it was in Huffman. When my parents had divorced, we'd been on our own for a couple years. I was playing either for the Spurs or for the Lakers in the local Pee Wee basketball league. I thought you might like appreciate that. And on the way, I just remember like looking out the back window, and there was like this orb of light. And it just looked like at first it looked like a really bright star, slightly larger, maybe like twice the size you would expect like to see like a really bright star. But like I had seen this thing, and it just like it seemed stationary, which is what things normally look like if they're far away. They look like they're stationary. And it just kind of like zigzagged around and then bolted off, and then it was gone. And that was the only thing I ever saw. Anything like that. And and that only time ever, this is in fucking Huffman, where especially when I was 8 years old, tiny ass fucking city, literally tiny ass city, bro. Like, my brother graduated in 2002, and his graduating class had a total of 100 people in the graduating class. It's a very small school.
That's a small number of kids graduating.
So that experience certainly was something that stuck with me. Like I said, I can remember it pretty vividly, but I've just always just kind of dismissed it because that was all it ever was, and I never saw anything like that again. But there's no light pollution in Huffman, or at least there wasn't at the time. There were no road lights. There was like the traffic lights there was like 3 traffic lights in the whole town. You know what I mean? Like there's very little light pollution.
Small town.
Yeah, it's very little light pollution. Not a lot that could obstruct your view of something that's bright in the sky. So look, man, I don't know that was a UFO or that it wasn't a UFO, but it was like a really crazy experience.
And we have these singular things, but just like Heartbreak, there was a group of people that saw that.
Oh, right, yeah, 10 to 12 people.
A group of people that saw that shit that happened in, what was it, Phoenix or Arizona, with all the crazy fucking lights in the sky that time.
Yeah. Well, there's actually videos. There's actually video footage that's somewhat is familiar to what he's describing, like of like 5 crafts that are all like in this triangular shape.
Yes.
Like a
don't move. It's all fucking perfect, right?
And they all kind of like move almost like you would expect a group of drones to move. But Heartbreak here says before that had happened, if anybody had told him about UFOs, he would have laughed at them. So understandable, man. Like just on the surface alone, UFOs sound kind of crazy, especially if you're a skeptic already. Thought about how weird the Black Knight satellite is? I don't know much about the Black Knight satellite, but you're making me want to look that up. Again, Scarecrow, you keep coming through here and dropping some bombs on us, and I want to pursue them, but we can't go too far on a tangent.
Is this something related to Bruce Wayne?
The Dark Knight. Or Black Knight. But okay, so it's interesting that you actually brought that up, Heartbreak, that you had this personal experience, because I actually did have in my notes written right after I talk about the 1994 Air Force official story, talking about numerous reports of alien abductions that have occurred since then. Now, it's important to note that while there are stories that predate this that we could say are stories of aliens or alien abductions, or that we can postulate that might be that. As a phenomenon, reports of abductions didn't really happen before the Roswell thing. Now, look, does that mean that all these people live in Fantasyland and then all of a sudden they think aliens exist, so they're all making up fantastic stories? It's absolutely possible.
Yes.
It's absolutely possible. It's also possible that a bunch of people that had crazy things happen to them and had no idea what the fuck was going on now had something that was like, oh, that actually is starting to make sense. That sounds familiar to what I went through.
Yeah.
So he says, sorry, laughing my ass off. I just have a bunch of random shit on my... Hey, man, it's all good. Welcome to What the Fuck Is Up. Welcome to Screen Break Entertainment. Man. And we're happy to pursue tangents, but unfortunately, we got to be real careful about how far we drift off on a tangent when it comes to this stuff, because there's just so much to talk about. All right, so we're 24 minutes in, and we're getting to my favorite part, what I think is the most compelling element for extraterrestrial UFOs, Bob Lazar.
Oh, Bob Lazar is the man.
So, first of all, if you haven't already, there is a documentary that's on Netflix by Jeremy Corbell, which, he's an interesting guy, but I'm more interested in his work than I am in him. He has a documentary out all about Bob Lazar. And there's some stuff that happens in that movie that's real weird, like the police raiding his house for apparently fucking reason. And he just happens to be like right in the middle of shooting a conspiracy documentary that was recorded over the course of, I think, like 3 years or something like that. Let's talk about Bob Lazar. Now, Bob Lazar has been discredited a lot by quote unquote official sources, but there's some things about that's a little bit interesting. So
I mean, they try and play him and basically try to erase him from.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that because So his first appearance was in 1989. That was the first time he showed up, and it was in a local Nevada news. I think it was like a statewide station report or something like that. But George Knapp was the reporter. He had contact with George Knapp, and it took George Knapp a long time to convince Bob Lazar to come forward with it. But I guess Bob Lazar was going through some shit with his wife, and he thought his life was already in danger. So he was like, you know what, I'm gonna just fucking spill some beans while I got it, while my shit's already fucked. And so he goes out, but he does it with a fake name, and they blurred out his face, distorted his sound, his voice, all that stuff. And he comes out and he just basically says a bunch of shit. He says they were working with an element called 115, element 115. What's important about element 115 is that it was not even believed to be an element that existed. It was only theoretical at the time that he said that. And he's saying he's worked with it. So he's predicting an element that has not yet been seen, and they called him crazy at the time. But you fast forward 35 years later, 31 years later, and we've actually been able to create element 115. However, we have not been able to create a stable version of it, so it is very radioactive, and it does break down as soon as it's created. But what's interesting is that he's saying that the crafts that he was working on worked with a stable version of element 115. He also claims that he didn't necessarily say it, but he's basically claimed that he's made off with some of element 115, and he still holds on to some of it,
which I think was the reason for
the raid.
Yeah,
I think
they were looking. They claimed it was because his business, and they shipped like hazardous goods across state lines or some shit. So that's why they claimed they raided his shit, but. It's weird. Right after he said he snuck off with some, they fucking came and tried to raid his shit.
Well, he's been saying that for a long, long time. Actually, the element 115 thing that was from basically from the beginning. In fact, George Knapp says that he can't find it, but he has footage of Bob Lazar holding a box that contained what he took from from S4, which is where he said he worked. Now, the thing about Bob Lazar, and Supes actually just referenced this a little bit, was that the reason he's been discredited is because places he said he got his master's degree from MIT. Well, according to MIT, they've never heard of him. That's pretty weird, right? That's
right. How you gonna get this kind of job and not have the credentials you say you have, right?
Right. Well, and then the job that he had just before that just before he went to work at S7 was, I think, and I could be getting this wrong. I'm hoping Ethan's still in here and maybe he can correct me if I'm wrong. But he worked at Los Alamos Labs, and they claim that they had never heard of him. Now, what's interesting about this is that, first of all, there is a newspaper article from like 5 years before where they're covering him because he had attached a big rocket on the back of his like his Mustang or some shit, some sport, like some muscle car that he had. He put a fucking rocket engine on the back of it. And they put a rocket engine on the back, or he did, and they covered him in the local newspaper. And in that story, which you can find it still, in that story, part of his biography, they introduce him as working at that time at Los Alamos Labs.
Yeah.
And what was also interesting, you got that right. Don't worry. Thank you, Ethan. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this is that George Knapp actually went with Bob Lazar to Los Alamos. And according to George Knapp, which I've listened to George Knapp talk for several hours on this topic, I think he's a very reliable person. He does not sound like somebody that wants to believe in extraterrestrials. He sounds like somebody that's been convinced by the information that's been provided to him. So with that, they went into Los Alamos together, and according to George Knapp, they passed by several people that recognized Bob, and had carried on small talk with him, as if
he'd worked there before,
as if they knew him.
Weird.
So that's at least one of the 3 places that his records were deleted from. That it appears the other one, it's another school, but I can't remember what the other school was. That appears to be an outright lie. Now, DJ Hannibal Roy says dudes be lying on their resumes though, and this is true.
Straight up.
People do lie on their resumes. I'm not going to say they don't. But the thing about this whole situation is, think about this in the 80s. If the CIA or the FBI or the government wanted to keep you or make you look crazy or take away your credentials, they had all the power in the world to delete your records from places like MIT and major scientific laboratories and other universities, because there's 2 universities in Los Alamos Labs. So with that said, what he claimed was that he worked on one of 9 UFOs. He saw 9 of them. They all looked different, but he worked on one of them, and he worked on one of them for about 6 months. And he goes through a bunch of different details about like stuff that they disclosed to him. And he does think, and they said in there that extraterrestrials have been communicating with humans for the last 10,000 years, giving us technology and helping us move forward. But he said this, and he even said this in his Joe Rogan interview, I don't necessarily believe that. That was just part of the briefing package that I was given. And he said, I think that there is misinformation that was in the briefings, specifically so that if I did leak, or if I did come out and leak information, there would be stuff that was provably false, that they had information that they had given me. Now, he also, this is my thing about Bob Lazar. In the course of 31 years telling this story, his story has never changed.
Never changed at all.
It's never changed. It's been the same story all this time. And something else, and the documentary actually goes over this, is he described back in the 80s this like weird hand scanning device that he had to scan his hands in to get into the laboratory, right? And in the movie, they found like, okay, so when he had talked about this, the military, everybody that George Knapp interviewed that he could get a hold of that was willing to talk to him in a more public sense was like, I've never heard of this. I don't know what he's talking about. I've never seen him before. I've never worked here. And then about, 3 years ago or something like that, during the taping of the documentary, they found the actual hand scanner. And if you look at the hand scanner and how it operates, and you go back and listen to his like 1989 and his 1991 and 1992 interviews where he talks about this hand scanner, it matches the description verbatim.
To the T. Yes.
Verbatim. That's insanity. Just that. In and of that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he keeps serving up facts that are proven. Like,
well,
so this guy,
Element 115, they said he was crazy. It could never exist. And what do you know? It exists. The hand scanner, that's a big deal. The Los Alamos Labs, that's a big thing.
Right. And being able to go and know his way around the facility when he's walking through.
Oh, that was the other thing.
You don't do that if you've never been somewhere before. So he keeps just
shitting
all over these people.
Unless you're really, really lucky.
Very lucky.
Very, very
Didn't
lucky.
work for Kaylee Anthony.
So here's my thing, man. I don't know how to talk about this in any specific order, because after watching the documentary, going back and watching all the interviews, doing as much research as I can, and then listening to him talk with Joe Rogan for 3 straight hours, I believe him, man. All I can tell you is I fucking believe him. His description has been consistent. His diagrams and drawings of it have been consistent. But here's where shit gets real interesting. And I'm hoping. Scarecrow's got to go. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming by and hanging out.
Hey, thanks for stopping by, bro.
DJ Hannibal Royce, you got to go check out that documentary, man. It's really good.
Yeah, you got to watch it, man. It's dope.
And the Lazar story is very interesting because time seemed to be proving him right on the stuff he has said. So, Heartbreak, that's interesting that you say that. I'm glad you're still here, because I was actually hoping you would be, because this is where I'm going to talk about David Fravor. So everybody's seen the Tic Tac videos now, right? We've all seen them. We've all seen the
TikTok.
Official Tic Tac. Did I say? I might have said TikTok. I keep.
You didn't. You didn't. I'm just
okay.
clarifying for the masses, not TikTok.
It's funny because Trump actually called it Tic Tac on the podium the other day as he was talking about like.
This fucking guy, man.
All right. So you guys have all seen the TikTok videos that came from the Pentagon.
You did say TikTok that time.
Tic Tac. Tic Tac. Fuck. God damn it. The cultural lexicon has manipulated me into saying words I don't intend to. Fuck. All right. So Tic Tac. The Tic Tac videos. You guys have all seen them. I've seen them. Most people have seen them. There is the guy that was piloting the plane in 2004, which is one of the footage, who isn't David Fravor but served under David Fravor, and David Fravor was flying with him. And both of them can tell the story exactly the same. This craft he said who? David oh, okay. Yeah. I'm with you. So David Fravor actually has described this in pretty good detail, and I'm going to mess it up, right? But let me see here. All right. So, Supes is gonna step away real quick, but as he's stepping away, I'm gonna go over the Fravor video, or basically what Fravor's account of the situation has been. Cultural lexicon nerd. Yeah, I'm a fucking nerd. What can I say? It's the most convincing of the testimonies I've seen so far from the military. Yeah. It's very convincing. And basically, Fravor describes this craft that zips around, goes back and forth all over the fucking place. And they can't keep up with it. It does not appear to have any propulsion. It's just moving at speeds that are unlike anything these military military pilots, and again, these are military pilots, the most, as I understand it anyways, the most regularly tested and verified for psychological disorders in our military service. These guys are talking about this craft going faster than anything they've ever seen. It drops into the water, comes out of the water without making a splash. And whenever it moves, it tilts a little bit and then flies in the direction that it's tilting. And then it tilts a little bit the other direction and flies in the direction it's tilting. Again, no propulsion. Now, what's important about this Tic Tac footage is that the Tic Tac footage actually, at least one of them, maybe both of them, but at least one of them is viewing from a heat I think it's like a heat sensitive perspective, and basically what I'm not saying it how it what it's saying how it that's not what it's officially called, but essentially it's this it's supposed to be able to detect heat, and there's no detection of heat whatsoever coming away, pushing the opposite direction that it's moving, pushing in the direction it's moving. None at all. There's literally absolutely zero indication that there is any propulsion whatsoever on the ship, beyond the fact that there doesn't appear to be any propulsion coming from the ship. It's jamming. This is important. It's jamming their radars. It's jamming the military's radars. You're muted. Their Supes.
I knew that.
It's jamming their radars, which is actually, as I understand it, a fucking act of war. So, infrared cameras. Thank you, Heartbreak. So, why is this relevant specifically? Well, this is relevant, first of all, for the obvious reason that this is very convincing evidence that there are UFOs. Fravor was asked, what do you think? Do you think that they're aliens? He said, look, man, I don't know if I'm going to say that they're aliens or where they're from, but I'll tell you this. I don't think it comes from here. And if it is extraterrestrials, I think that they come regularly and watch us. And here's the thing that he said on Rogan's podcast that fucked me up. This happens on the East Coast with regularity, apparently. Navy pilots and Air Force pilots that are stationed on the East Coast apparently can set their fucking calendars to it. They will go out at specific... My fucking thing is all fucked up right now. They will go out...
It's element 115, man.
Yeah, that's what it is. The gravity's pushing it away. They will go out with the explicit intent of making contact or at least seeing these things in action, and they can do it. They can like set their watch to it. And Fravor actually said the event that they captured, that shit was going on for like 2 fucking weeks before they went out and started trying to chase it and shit.
That's ridiculous.
They were seeing it happen with regularity for like 2 weeks before they did anything. So why is this even more interesting? Well, if you look at the shape of the Tic Tac ship and you watch how it flies, those things both match the description almost verbatim of Bob Lazar's diagrams, and they fly exactly the way that Bob Lazar described the saucer that he worked on, the ship that he worked on, how it flew.
Again, proving himself right after the fact, over and over. He's doing it again.
Yeah. Hold on. Jay Book here says, so I'm at work watching and legit just got fired from my job. Oh, well, that's life.
What?
Damn, dude, you didn't get fired for watching us, did you? If you did, I'm like...
I hope not, bro. Damn.
I feel fucking terrible. But I'm really sorry to hear that.
Jesus.
Everybody give some well wishes to Jay Book, and I hope you're able to get on your feet there, man. That's fucked up. God damn. I'm really sorry to hear that.
No, man.
If I lost my job today, I'd be fucked. So, by the way, I'm at the end of my notes. These are all the notes that I took. I can't go over my notes anymore.
We're freestyling it now. But
my point is that Bob Lazar explained that basically the ships manipulated gravity, and so they basically they act like gravity doesn't exist in their field, and they push gravity around them. So they're using gravity like water. Like it's like swimming through gravity. And because it's manipulating gravity and using gravity, it can move at unparalleled
speeds. Do whatever it wants.
And it can correct at any rate. But he said it tilts and flies, tilts and flies, tilts and flies. The propulsion is not obvious. It's under the craft. It's on the bottom half of the craft where these like things that I don't know. He tried to describe it, but I'm a fucking moron. So, point being,
I'm sure there's some diagrams of it based on.
He's drawn them. He's drawn diagrams. Hold on. Heartbreak says here, that made me remember the Alaska incident with the Japanese 747 should look that out, up some other time. All right, yeah, I'll have to check that out. So here's the thing, like, to me,
oh yeah,
I don't know how, with all of the shit that we've talked about just in this podcast, not to mention all the other compelling footage, compelling stories, I mean, George Knapp says that he's been contacted and he's spoken to several people that either worked at S4 or were knew Bob Lazar at the time, or like he's talked to several people, and none of them will actually do anything publicly because they fear for their lives. Every time they've met with them, they get visited by the FBI or some dudes dressed up in real nice suits shortly after. So they're all scared to actually talk. But according to George Knapp, he's been spoken to by many people that have corroborated Lazar's story. Look, I don't see how at this point you could think Lazar's a crazy person. The ships that are in... Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying there's just too much of... Oh, my God. There's just too much of what he said that's come to pass or come to fruition. So I just think it's too hard to just discredit everything he said as some weird space guy kook. Like, there's definitely some truth and legitimacy to the things that he said.
Without a doubt, I would be very, very surprised at this point if some proof came out that he's been lying all this time. I think what's been happening all this time is he's tried really hard to give truth, because his whole point hasn't been, he said it time and time again, I'm not trying to be famous about this. In fact, I'd prefer that nobody tried to contact me, that everybody kind of leave me alone. But his thing is, what bothered him is that when he was down there in S4, he and one other person were working on one craft, and groups of 2 were working on the other 8 crafts. And he said it made no sense to him that they forced everybody to work separately. Like, nobody could share information about their crafts with them. They could not go back and forth. And this wasn't something that was open for scientists to come in and help study and try to figure out. And from his perspective, it was just absurd that we're trying to make advances, scientific advances as a society, and we've got this amazing technology, and instead of getting some of the smartest people in the world to come in and work on this, they just keep finding like outliers that they can bring in, and hopefully they'll discover something that they can use, and then they can just get rid of them as soon as they
ship
become
them out.
It's because they're disposable, which is what they did with Bob Lazar, which, by the way, they fired him before he came out because his wife was having an affair. That's why they fired him. His wife was having
him because his wife was having an affair?
They fired him because his wife was having an affair, and they thought that would interfere with his work. They thought that would interfere with his emotional well-being. And they had tapped, according to him, they had tapped all of his phones. So they knew that this was going on before he did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they knew that the affair was going on before he did. So anyways.
Oh, my God.
I want to talk about one of the things that we mentioned about Lazar, what was in Lazar's briefing, which is the aliens have been in contact for 10,000 years. Now, before we move on past that, no, these are all connected, so we're gonna keep moving through this train of thought. Now, look, I'm not convinced that aliens have been with us for generations, or they've been coming in and intervening, or anything like that. I'm not convinced of that. However, let's assume for a second that aliens do exist. And if we're willing to accept that these aliens of world-breaking technological prowess, these beings exist with this technology, they obviously have lived much longer than we have.
Yeah.
We can all kind of agree with that, right? Like, I think we can all get on the same page. It is likely that many...
If their technology is that advanced, they have been around longer than we have.
Or
they're at least
just
been
really,
civilized
really
longer than that too.
But yeah, well...
But I think it just points to them being around, being...
civilized longer.
Organized and civilized way longer than we have.
Right.
I'm pretty sure we're infants.
So, yeah, to them. So from... looking at it from that perspective, there's no reason to me that to say that couldn't be the case. But then, I mean, look, Ancient Aliens as a show is absurd. They go fucking nutty, and the guy with the crazy hair, you know, all that shit. Like, it's as a show on its own, the evidence that it provides, all that stuff. I'm not trying to go down that, but I will say that there is some compelling evidence that we have been influenced in some way or another by a species or a type of being that is way more advanced than we are. I mean, you can look at the Sumerian paintings and clay tablets and shit like that that depict what looks like a person in an astronaut suit inside of a rocket,
or inside of a spaceship or something. Like there's way too much.
There's like Renaissance paintings of like Christ where there's like these weird UFOs flying in the background, like that just they don't fit into any of the architecture or the rest of the imagery whatsoever. So I think, like, given that, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that extraterrestrials, if they exist and are visiting us now, that I don't see any reason to think that it's not possible that they could have been doing this for much longer than just the last 50 years.
I mean,
years.
Why wouldn't they? I mean, if they had the technology to get here and the ability to, I mean, there might not have been anything sinister to it, or it just, hey, these guys are fucking stupid. Let's help them out.
Yeah,
you know, like
let's help them move along a little bit. Let them.
Yeah.
Well, and then go ahead.
No, just thinking about like Prometheus.
Right.
We're some kind of fucking experiment, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's certainly possible. That's a line of thought that I'm a line of logic that I'm willing to I'm willing to follow. But even if you're not willing to follow that line of logic, like even if like that's not convincing enough for you, in and of itself, there's evidence that human civilization, that we've been civilized for much longer than has been postulated by our scientific community. And there's things like the Sphinx. If you look at the Sphinx closely, the bottom half of it has severely different proportions than the top half. And it's also got significantly more rain damage, as if it was there for a considerable amount of time before it was added to. There's things like Göbekli Tepe, which is one of my favorite ones because it's a 13,000-year-old, or it dates back to 13,000 BC. This city that's like, they've got like these altars built all over the place and like underground tunnels that look like they all had like some kind of specific reasoning. All the way up to like building techniques that were used. I mean, I know this is like typical like ancient alien stuff. But...
right. But I mean, it's very difficult to explain how these things actually happen, man. Like building the pyramids, like, great, you could explain it by using that they used a shit ton of slaves to do it, but
yeah,
I don't know.
There have been people that have used diagrams to kind of like lay out how it's possible, and I guess you could make it happen, but it happened very fast. There's the whole like the pyramids lining up with the constellations. There's architecture that seems to be like knowledge that was shared across an ocean before that ocean travel was a regular thing.
Like cultures developing along the same lines, using the same sort of culture, the same figures, and I mean, it doesn't make any sense if just for example, somebody's in Mexico or one of these tribes is in Mexico and another one's in fucking Egypt. How would they have possibly been able to share that information? So that just leads you to kind of think maybe someone gave them that information that could move about and share that kind of shit with them. So I definitely think that there's, religion, like they all all these different religions sprouting up.
Well, that's an interesting thing too. A lot of religions, even religions that have nothing to do with each other, were never near each other, as far as like geographically speaking, like religious perspectives that did not exist parallel or next to each other. They have similar stories. Lots of religions have like a Christ-like figure with a very similar like 12 disciples and Antichrist and Earth built in 7 days and all that kind of shit. Heartbreak says, if something like that was true, it means their technology would be at least some 1,000 years more advanced than ours. It's an interesting to think about. And that's kind of my point.
Which means like I don't want to go searching for them.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, clearly they've already found us. So
yeah, I mean, but if they know we're here and they're not doing anything, leave them the fuck alone, man. If they wanted to kill us, they could wipe us all out in a day.
So my thing is like, do I believe that aliens influenced human civilization? I think that's possible. I think it's absolutely possible. Yeah, but even if they didn't, if they're visiting us now, I'm absolutely inclined to believe they've been doing it for a long time.
And they were probably doing it way more openly based on some of these drawings, these not primitive, these cave drawings and the artwork from,
clay tablets,
paintings, from way back in the day, and they're depicting people with these helmets on and these space looking suits, right. Unless they're drawing a comic, which why would they even think they could go into space? Like I don't.
Kryptonians before Kryptonians existed.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing comics with Kryptonians.
Exactly. They were either these guys are way ahead of their time, or they're drawing some shit that they saw.
Right. Exactly.
Which makes a lot more sense to me.
The Nazca lines has always bothered me. I don't know if you've seen that, but they're these like huge, these huge pieces, like drawings that they're in like South America, and they're like huge drawings of like monkeys, and like there's a monkey and like other animal. I can't remember them all right now, but they're massive. They're like hundreds of yards large, and they were done a long time ago, like somewhere like 2,000, 3,000 some odd years ago, a very long time ago. And they're massive. In order to see them, you have to actually be in an aircraft to look at the ground below to see them.
Wow.
And scientists will explain this as, well, it's just like crop circles are done now. They have a very good idea of what they want to accomplish, and they just, they count the amount of steps, and they turn around and they count the amount of steps. And look, is that possible? Absolutely, man. If you got no fucking TV and internet and all the rest of that, you got all the free time in the world.
You're right about that.
It's certainly possible.
These motherfuckers also had to hunt and eat. So,
but the other thing is, what is the fucking purpose of these massive diagrams? Like, what reason do they have to exist? Like, you could say, like, okay, then why do cave drawings exist? I can tell you why cave drawings exist, because from a logistical standpoint, I can take my finger and dip it in blood and paint it on a fucking, or clay or whatever, and paint it on the side of a cave. And guess what? That wasn't that fucking complicated. And I can tell a whole story that way with stick figures and shit.
Absolutely.
But to do this shit, somebody had to dedicate years of their lives to just drawing a monkey in the side of a mountain.
Like, why?
And it's just weird.
Yeah, why?
So, my perspective is that I think that it's likely they have been, if they are already. But here's the other thing. It's possible, and I think South Park is really prolific for this. I think it's possible that they've been watching us for thousands of years, not intervening, not doing a damn thing for thousands of years, and just watching us like we're some kind of fucking reality TV show.
Yeah, we're the greatest reality show of all time. That's what's they're like, oh look, Trump's in charge this season. I'm really fucking watching.
Can you believe the Apprentice guy won?
Yeah, this fucking guy.
These fucking morons.
Oh my god, man. Yeah. So I and you think about things like these pyramids, like you said, lining up with constellations.
Yeah.
But they also line up with fucking like latitude and longitude lines.
Oh yeah, there's some like weird
directly, like they're on fucking corners. Like it's just
there's some weird shit. Yeah.
The precision, or when they'll go back and they'll find like some something that's made out of metal cut in a way that was impossible for it to be have been cut in.
Or it just doesn't, or at least in what we know is possible.
Right.
Earth is trending #1 in the universe, says DJ Hannibal Royce. I wonder how our galactic ratings are.
Right. In fucking galactic Nielsen ratings.
I think Rick and Morty actually did that too, the reality TV.
They did. Get Swifty.
Dude, I love that fucking episode.
Get
You know that whole
Swifty.
episode was just so that they could, because they came up with the song and they wanted an excuse to do the song in an episode. So they based the entire episode around the Get Swifty song.
That's one of my favorite fucking episodes.
It's such genius. My favorite episode is definitely Pickle Rick.
Pickle Rick.
Good. Pickle Rick was such a good episode.
That was a good episode.
So here's the thing, man. Like, I wanted to tell you this, tell you guys this part. DJ Hannibal Royce, if you want to get scared, if you want to be scared of the stories and stuff that we've been talking about today, I'll tell you one thing that's real fucking creepy. So George Knapp got in contact with some Russian scientists because he wanted to know if Russia had any record or record of experiences with UFOs and extraterrestrials. And it took him a while, but he was able to get in touch with a scientist that said that, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely something that's happened here, and we're actively trying to pursue it and understand it. And George Knapp said, oh wow, so like, is this something that like everybody is fairly aware of in government and military and stuff? He goes, look, this is what I can tell you. I don't remember exactly when he said this happened, so I don't want to give you a time frame. It could have been the 70s, it could have been the 90s, who fucking knows? I don't remember when he said this happened. But according to this Russian scientist, so you know how we all have nukes. Russia has nukes, and we have nukes, and all the rest of that. So Russians had discovered a craft nearby, and similarly to how they jammed the American radars, as almost to show their power, all of the nukes in Russia armed. All of them. It might have just been in that specific silo, but basically the entire group of nuclear weaponry had become armed, and everything was getting ready for a launch initiation. And Russian scientists and you know, the people that are running the silos and everything are freaking out, trying to stop whatever's happening, and nobody knows what's going on. Nobody can get it. No, like, they don't know that if they're being hacked. They have no idea. And right as shit is about to launch, like right as they're about to get shot off, all of the nukes shut off, just like that. All of the nukes go right back to normal. They unarm. Everything goes back to normal, just like that. Snap of a finger. Almost as if to say, don't fuck with us, man. Yeah. Like, these are toys. You got little toys. We're the big motherfuckers around here. Like, I'm gonna have to see if I can find, so I can share it on Twitter or something. George Knapp told that story on Rogan just a couple weeks ago. And he's got a bunch of really interesting shit to talk about for sure. But just that story in and of itself is like fucking, just like, can you imagine what you would have felt? I need
some new underwear right now. Like, fuck. No.
Fucking insanity to think that anything like that could fucking happen.
Again, these ain't the motherfuckers we want to fuck with.
Yeah. Like, let's be friendly. I'm kind of hoping like they're gonna see all the shit going on with coronavirus and like the 2020 election, how we got to vote between two geriatric patients that both deserve to be in fucking
you geriatric fuck.
I kind of keep hoping that they're gonna come down and go, all right, that's enough.
Right.
Y'all fucked it up. Let's figure out another way to do this.
Right. It's like The Simpsons with Kodo and Kang. Don't blame me, man. I voted for Kang.
So because let's do ancient aliens and extraterrestrials, UFOs or whatever as two separate things. So let's
two separate. Okay.
Let's
All right.
What do you give the ancient alien conspiracy?
Ancient aliens.
0 out of 5. What the fucks?
I'm gonna give Ancient Aliens. I'm gonna give them a 3 out of 5. What the fucks?
All right. I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna go 3.5.
Okay.
I'm gonna go 3.5. Actually, no. I'm gonna go 4. What the fucks? Only because if they're here now, I see no reason why they wouldn't be. If they're here now, I see no reason to think why they wouldn't have been here long before now.
That's very true.
So,
I guess these could almost they almost have to be the same.
But for the UFOs and extraterrestrials, the modern stories, what we know of today, I'm not talking about abductions. We'd have to do a whole different episode talking about abductions, man. That shit gets nuts. But UFOs, extraterrestrials coming down to visit us, coming down to see us, watch us like we're some fucking reality TV show. I'm giving this 5 out of 5.
5 out of fucking 5.
Honestly, after the Bob Lazar story, after everything that's been proven right about what he's been saying, after everything, the testimonials from George Knapp, the testimonials from Dave Fravor, from who's this other guy that was flying with him?
I forget the guy's name.
I had it pulled up. Chad Underwood. All of these people, I'm giving it 5 out of 5. What the fucks?
This is how crazy 2020 is. So the government has admitted
basically
that
yeah
UFOs exist, right? Like they're like, yo, yeah, these exist, but this shit is so crazy right now. Like everybody's just like, okay,
nobody gives a fuck.
You know, as long as they're not coming down here fucking trying to kill us right now, like whatever. But that's how crazy this shit is. The government straight up admitted that they have proof that this happened.
Now, here's the thing, guys. I want to let y'all know we expect that we might do a part 2 to this.
Yeah.
And the reason that we would do a part 2 is because the Pentagon says that they still have information that they're going to provide us. They are going to share a bunch of their information that they've acquired over the course of the last 6 to 10 years that they've been doing research from everything, about everything, the Tic Tacs and all the rest of that.
Mm-hmm.
Heartbreak gives Lazar a 4 out of 5 and Frazier a 5 out of 5. Let me make sure that I'm it's not Frazier, it's Fravor. I'm sorry if I've said that wrong.
The pilot.
Fravor.
Who's a fellow shipmate.
Yeah.
He definitely gets
which is also interesting because Supes here was actually serving in the Navy.
Yeah.
On a ship. At the same time as these guys, this was all going on, and it's Go ahead.
The two ships that those pilots are from were in the same battle group that I was in, which was pretty fucking
legit.
Cool. So
that's fucking legit.
and we might have even all been on deployment at the time that it happened because they do night ops all the time. Like they're always flying at it, so the chances of them seeing that kind of stuff, they're definitely elevated.
So what I'm saying here is that the Pentagon is saying they're going to share a bunch of information with us. Once the Pentagon does that, I think that we got to do a follow-up to this and talk about everything that the Pentagon revealed. I
agree.
But
hey, definitely appreciate it, DJ. He said thank you for serving our country. Hey, it was my pleasure. I had a fucking blast doing it. You guys, your tax money paid for me to do a bunch of stupid shit. So thank you.
So thank you for your money, actually.
Thank you all. But again, it was fun, man. I had a blast. I would do it all over again if I had the choice.
So I think we've reached the end. But yes, you know what? I have to say it, man. I've said this to you a million times because you're my best friend and we talk all the time. But thank you for your service, Supes. Seriously.
Oh, of course, man. Absolutely.
I didn't want to get on that. I didn't want to try to steal DJ Hannibal Royce's thunder, but I can't just not say it after he did. Now I look like a fucking prick.
You dick.
Listen, guys. I think that's it. I think we covered everything. Yay! That means I donated already.
Oh, that was good.
That is good, man.
That was good. But did I give UFOs get a 5 out of 5 what the fucks for me?
I think, yeah. Well, yeah, you were doing this. You were flashing the 5.
I was doing the hand signals.
Yeah. But the audio only podcast listeners aren't going to be able to see the hand signals. So
see,
it's a good thing you said
had
that.
to come back, double back to it. I ran back to that point.
It took you all night to get to it, but you fucking did it, bro. You fucking did it, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for doing it.
I do it for you guys, man.
All right, guys. I think that's everything. Look, man, I was kind of nervous about going on talking about things like conspiracies and shit like that, but this kind of topic, I actually get really into conspiracies, even if I don't buy into them. I love like learning about the theories and like where the theories come from and all that stuff. So I'm really into this. It appears that you guys really seem to enjoy this too. The amount of views that we've held on to for as long as we've had, and for the amount of likes that we have before the stream is even over. This has been a pretty successful podcast already, just in terms of this. So guys, you know what? Before I say my outro, before I finish up, why don't you go ahead and give us your outro there, Supes?
Hey, man. We definitely appreciate you guys hanging out with us, as always. I love you guys, man. Thank you for just sticking with us, man. Like, we're still kind of new to this. And, well, I know Spada's been doing it for a while. But us,
well, not the podcasting element, but yeah.
Yeah, we're still kind of new to this, so... Yeah, it's cool. We got our people that have been down from jump. So when everybody else, if we catch on and everybody else thinks we're cool, you guys are gonna be.
We'll never forget.
OGs.
We'll never forget.
Yeah, we love y'all, man. So that's all I gotta say. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all again from me as well. You guys, if you're listening to the audio only podcast, make sure to like the podcast, share the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, and review the podcast. Give us 5 stars, not 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, or 1 star. Definitely not the 3 star, 2 star, or 1 star. Give us 5 stars. Tell us how amazing we are. I'm just kidding. As always, definitely be honest with us. Be brutally honest if you need to. We need the feedback, and we're trying to improve. But yeah. Anyways, guys, we love y'all. Thank y'all so much for coming by and hanging out with us. Next week we got another podcast, and if you're listening to the audio only version of the podcast, or any other version of the, if you're watching this in any other way, you can follow me on Twitter at ScreenBreakInt, all one word, ScreenBreakInt, and that's ENT at the end. You can follow Supes at Sir Supes on Twitter. You can follow both of us on Instagram at WTF Spada Supes, and on Facebook you can find us at WTF is up ? You search that, you should find our Facebook page, and you can follow us there. We post a lot of different stuff on Instagram and Facebook that doesn't make it to Twitter or into the podcast, so it's definitely worth following us over there. And if you're listening to any other version than the YouTube version of this podcast, make sure to come visit us at Screen Break Entertainment on YouTube. You can just search literally Screen Break Entertainment will be the first search result that pulls up. And Supes and I have been doing all kinds of crazy shit. We just played yesterday. We stayed up way too late playing Fall Guys. Is that what that shit's called?
Yeah, Fall Guys. That shit is so fun.
It's super good, man. If you don't have it, you absolutely should have it. Beyond that, we're going to be streaming. We haven't figured out exactly how we're going to do it, but we're going to do like Master Chief Collection. We're going to stream some whatever shit we can, maybe Grounded. Definitely going to be playing some more Injustice 2. Supes has been training up on it, so I'm excited to get him back on stream to see what he's been learning. So definitely come by the YouTube channel. Show us some support. Show us some love. Also, for those of you that are Screen Break Entertainment people that have been with the channel for a very, very long time, I want to make sure you guys all know it looks like Injustice 3 is inevitable and a living roster is on the way, but I can't talk too much more about that. We'll talk about that. I'll do like a vlog or something about that soon. All right, guys. I love you guys. Thank you so much for coming by.
Hey, yo, peace.
And we'll see y'all next time.